Good morning, North Middle School. Today we're going to be taking a big chunk of clay and we're going to create a slab bowl similar to this one. It's going to have some kind of a foot on the bottom, and it's going to have a texture design that's actually going to have a little bit of a low relief to it. So to start, we'll each have a big slab of clay like this, and you will need to use 2 wooden tiles like this so that you can measure the thickness of your clay. Now, to start, it's a good idea to have a big piece of plastic sheeting, and you want to press your clay just a little bit. This clay has already been wedged and ready to use, ready to go. So what you're going to do is just kind of press it down a little bit and then put it in the middle of your plastic sheet. You'll take your rolling pin starting in the middle and roll the clay out from the middle. Now, it's best when you're rolling your clay to start with your hands on top of the rolling pin. Instead of the handles, you have a little bit more control over it that way. And we use a plastic sheet for 2 reasons. First of all, so it doesn't stick to the table, and secondly, so that you can move the clay around. And you want to try to maintain that square shape. As you lengthen the clay all the way around, as you make it longer and thinner, you want to try to maintain that square shape, because the template that we need to use is round. That's how we get the shape of the bowl. And so our goal is to get this slab of clay larger than this template to start with. So I'm going to keep it on the plastic and roll in all directions. And I'm not pressing too hard. It's giving even pressure all the way around and turning the plastic as I roll. Now notice I also don't take the rolling pin all the way off the clay. If I do that, it's going to make the clay way too thin in some areas. The other thing that I want you to kind of think about is that we're going to keep the clay a little bit thick because we are going to be adding texture with texture rollers, which will be giving our project a little bit of low relief design. And that's going to add a little bit more pressure to the clay and flatten it a little bit more. So we're keeping it a little bit on the thick side. Now, once I get my clay rolled out about this big, I have these wooden tiles that I use to kind of gauge how thick it should be. And I want this clay to be about the thickness of the wooden tiles, so I can kind of hold this up to the clay and just measure to see if I've got it about the same thickness, which I do. And I need to do this before it gets too thin, because I really don't want my clay any thinner than the thickness of this tile. You could even hold the tiles up to the clay like this and put your rolling pin over it like that, and so that it doesn't get too thin. And turn it. Do the same thing on this side. And my rolling pin stays on top of the wooden tiles. And the center part of my clay has an even thickness. I can move it up a little bit like this and roll this end. I can move the tiles down here. And by keeping my rolling pin on top of those wooden tiles, it ensures that my clay does not get too thin. Now I'm going to try my template, see if it fits, and it fits perfectly now. It does not have to be too much larger than my template. You can see I've got a little bit of space there, but it needs to be slightly larger than. And I'm not going to do any measuring or drawing yet. The next step is to add the texture. Now I have some really cool texture rollers, and this is the design for this one. I've got a larger one that looks like this, and I actually got the design on the bowl for this from this texture roller. And I got another one that looks like this. I've got several different designs, and it's a good idea to practice on your clay on a slab clay before you start your actual project. But I've already tried it several times and I know what they look like. So I'm going to go ahead and press in my texture design. I'm giving it I'm pressing fairly firmly, giving it even pressure, and you can see it leaves a little line right there. So when I start my next roll, I have to line it up with that first line and go all the way down. And for my last one, I'm going to line it up with that last line. So I am going to get somewhat of a line here. And there's the next one, and I've got one more here. And this gives me this really cool kind of raised design. It's a little bit of a low relief design. And I'm going to hold it up so you can see it. Now, the thing that you need to remember is that once you have pressed that design in there, you do not ever want to go back over it again. It'll give you a very blurred design. You don't want to do that. So press firmly the first time and then leave it alone. Next, you're going to take your template, lay it on top, and use a stylus, either a wooden stylus or I actually use old ballpoint pens. And the purpose is just to draw into the clay lightly. It is not to actually cut into the clay. And you want to hold the stylus upright, almost perpendicular with the clay, and draw around the template. And you really do need to keep this straight up and down. Pull your template off carefully so that you don't tear the clay. And then you're ready to cut. Now, at this point, we are going to store it. We're not going to cut today. We're going to go ahead and store these so that they'll be ready to cut for the next class. Before you store it, you're going to turn it over, peel the plastic off, and incise your name in the back very carefully. Just very lightly, and if you're A day, put an A below your name. If you're a B day, put a B below your name. And then return it to the plastic. And then we're ready for storage. Now, we're going to let this sit until the next class, and it will dry just slightly. We're going to keep it loosely covered in a plastic bag. So to do that, you're going to leave it on the plastic sheet. You're going to slip it inside the plastic bag and just very lightly cover with your plastic so that it has a little bit of a seal. Tuck this under, and then you are ready to store it on a board that we will keep on the drying rack. When you come back to class next time, you'll just very carefully unfold it. It's still on the plastic. You'll pull the plastic out, and you're good to go for step 2. So thanks for paying special attention today and watching carefully. Good luck with your project, and I'll be around to check on you to see if you're understanding what you're doing and giving you some help. Thanks. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.